hey guys, hopefully you can hear us all right because nothing went the way it was supposed to today.
Yeah, I know. I was about to be like, Mercury's in retrograde, but it's not. We just like either are already too old to know how to work technology, or everything is just working against us, which is fine.
I have to kind of out myself for a second and say, like, I understand that people say Mercury's in retrograde when, like, they're being like, things are wonky, but I have no concept, like, context beneath that. I'm like, something about stars.
Yes.
And then I have no further thoughts.
We should talk about that sometime. I mean, do I actually know it? Not like, do I understand it? Not totally, but like I read about it all the time, like enough to where I'm like, it's in retrograde. What does this mean? So I should do some research and we should talk about it. I think that'd be fun.
Because I'm like, oh, when I got 17 magazine as a teenager, I would read my horoscope and be like, meh. So I'd love to hear about it from a deeper, understanding of what it means and its impact
Yes,
on us.
that would be really fun. And also then maybe it would help me like get out of my head when it is in retrograde and I'm like, hunker down, everybody. It's
You're
gonna
like,
be
I'm not gonna make it through this. Doesn't that
2
also
weeks of hell
doesn't Mercury go in retro? Doesn't that happen
all
like
the time.
multiple times a year, like many
Yes,
times? Okay.
it does. Yeah, like it more often. Yeah, I swear, like we just get out of it, and then I like it pops up on my phone just because I have this fun app, and then it's like says it's again. I'm like, wasn't it just in retrograde yesterday? So I don't know the rhyme or reason, but if I'm gonna throw it out there, I need to educate myself.
Now we're gonna learn about it. We're gonna figure this out, and then once I know about it, I'll get really invested and I'll care too much for a little bit, and I'm very excited.
I love that about us.
So, what is new with you, Brooke?
Oh man, nothing super new with me. You know, I do have to say, one little mini life lesson that I feel like I learned this week is just, I don't know about you, Erica, but I love a good to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have things that I want to get done and I want to check off, I turn into that person where I'm like, I want to get it all done today. So Tuesday rolls around, the 5th of July, mind you, and I am trying to get a hold of my credit card company and my insurance company and just kind of get all these weird little things situated, bills paid. And of course, I don't hear back because it is the Tuesday after the 4th of July, which fell on a Monday this year. People are on vacation. People are digging themselves out of their inbox. And I am irate because I'm like, I just want to get this stuff done. And I was like, I let it get to me. Like, so much so where I was like, this is America. We don't take vacations. Like, like, what? It is Tuesday. You had your day off yesterday. Like, of course, I don't say these things, right? Because I am not a psycho. But in my head, I am just like, my agenda is this for the day. And like, nothing's going my way. And I got all grumpy about it. And then I took a mental health break and I went on a walk and I worked out. And I came back and I was just able to, I think, accept that. I don't know. Like it's one thing to be said when, okay, you try to get stuff done, you hit a wall, you pivot to other tasks, but when everything in your day is just not moving forward,
Right.
I just finally took it as like a sign that, all right, you know, take a break. It will be here when you get back. There is time to get these things done.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, there were. And in many ways, I feel like it kind of actually worked out well because something that I just was going to get done on my own, get it done really fast. I was able to talk through with a representative. Like today, I had to book an appointment, and then I got a whole bunch of other questions answered and stuff. So,
Well, that's
not to start with like big lecturing point, but for anyone out there who might have had a week that was like, is something in retrograde? No, maybe it's just a sign that like you're trying to cram 500 things into just a small chunk of time that you're only supposed to do like 2. So yeah, I'm better now. I'm glad we're talking today, not 2 days ago when I would have been on a full rant.
planning Thursdays, getting partially through the week, mostly, if we will.
I think so. This is a good day for us.
I do get that. Like when you're finally like, I'm ready to do the things, and then when the things are not ready to be done, that can be really painful. So I'm very glad you were able to get through it unscathed, and it worked out even better. So now when it happens again, you'll be at peace. Maybe.
Yes, hopefully. I've been here before. I will, instead of, making it taking like 8 hours for me to get to that point, maybe it'll only take 6. Progress.
Even better.
Yes. How about you? What have you been up to this week?
Today I went for a bike ride with my niece. So she's been asking if we could go for a bike ride because I got really into cycling in the last 2 years, and then she started on her own like outdoor biking. And so we kept being like, oh, we need to go, and it kind of was one of those things that kept being like, we'll get to it, and other things.
Yeah.
But then last night she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, let's go. So today we rode our bikes for like almost 2 full hours outside. It was very warm. It was really fun for like the first hour and 45 minutes, but the last 15, like back to the car, because I had driven us to a trail, were like horrendous. But it was really lovely to get to spend that time with her and to chat with her, and also just to get, some exercise in outdoors when it wasn't so hot that I was going to die. But still get to feel that sun and heat. And I only got like a little sunburn, but you can't tell, I don't think, right now. So I have one.
I definitely cannot tell. You have a glow. You have a sunny glow.
I just look like a sun goddess. No.
Yes, a bronze goddess, if you will.
Either way, seems like the week is going all right for both of us, so we're probably ready for today's topic. So today I really wanted us to talk about goals, and the reason I thought that would be a good option for us is because Brooke's fantastic at them. Like before we even like envisioned Balanced and Bougie, I like would think of her when I thought of like people who actually set and achieve goals in a sensible way, because sometimes to me they feel like way too big and crazy, and they can like control and dictate my life. And so when I get to talk to Brooke about these things, I feel like she's able to kind of explain it in a way that makes it so much easier to do, less overwhelming, and actually something that makes you feel better as opposed to feel pushed in a stressy way. Hope that makes sense. So first, I guess I should say, Brooke, why do you set goals?
Oh, Erica, thank you for asking. My gosh, we almost need like 3 hours because I'm so dang passionate about this topic. But yes,
it's part 1, part 2.
I say, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Stay tuned. The next 5 episodes. So I set goals. For me, my personality type, full disclosure, I think I mentioned this before, I'm an Enneagram type 3. So like very goal driven is just kind of naturally in my wiring. But for me too, I think there's a healthy balance of how you can look at goals and how they can drive you through life. But for me, it just helps me live more intentionally. I really do think that way. It helps me remember to, give myself some self-love, to value myself, to advocate for myself, and to just make sure that I'm making the most of the time that I have, especially in a world full of distractions and us saying yes to a bunch of different things that, sometimes like we don't want to do. And then we're the last ones that we spend our time in actions on as ourselves, right? Because we're so busy taking care of everyone else. So setting goals is just like, I really think it's a form of showing yourself love and really, pursuing constant growth. And just, I feel like it really helps propel me through life to feel like I'm just living intentionally, and that, I'm growing into who, I hope to be, who I'm here to be. So
I love that. I mean, I definitely like the idea of thinking of goals as something that kind of helps you focus on you, because especially like during the summers, for those of you who don't know, I am a teacher, so like my schedule in the summer is a lot more chill, but it's worse than ever before because I'm going places all the time. And I definitely feel those pressures of being like, oh, well, I have to see everybody in my family. I have to see all of my friends who live across, the country, and all of those things are very important to me. But I do feel like that means my own like personal things, like that I want to work out this many times a week, or any personal goals that I have for myself definitely get put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So when you're starting a goal, like what do you just have one like pop in your head and then you're like, I'm going to focus on this for the next 6 months of my life? Like, what does that look like? How do you start?
Yeah. So I think for me personally, sometimes I have little goals like that. Like I tend to look through, and granted, guys, I read a lot about this. I listen to podcasts about it. I spend $60 yearly on like a planner about this type of stuff. And while, I have big overarching goals, this is not my knowledge, this is things I've absorbed, but it's like, you can set different types of goals, small, medium, large, you know, current, future, legacy, however you want to look at it. But yeah, it could be a quick, like, hey, this thing, like, let's say I want to start running, which will never be me because I won't run.
I also,
But yeah, like, oh, please no. But so it can pop in as an idea, but I think one thing that's super important for any goal, because like, again, the way I think about and use the term goal is something that I'm working towards, right? It needs to be worth your time, and especially too on the days that you just like don't want to do it, or the times or the seasons you have to push through, establishing your why is going to really help you with that. So like, even when it comes to little ideas that might pop in my head, like I'm actually, for an actual personal example, I took group fitness classes since I was a high schooler. Me and a bunch of middle-aged ladies would do body pump together and all these different things, and I was like, I want to teach this someday. And when I got to a season of life where it was finally possible for me, I really decided to dig into my why, right? So, kind of identifying like, why is this important to me? What would this bring to me? How would this help serve others? What is this saying? Because sometimes I think we have to be mindful of, ideas pop in our heads, but they're more of like, I should. I should do this. I should run. I should be like this person or do this thing. And it's like, no, you have to really start from a place that's like authentic to you. So that's first and foremost, like any goal, whether it's like small or it's a big one, I really try to dive into the whys. So, again, just kind of thinking about like, and don't hold yourself back when you're thinking about, it's like, let it grow and let it snowball. Like, if you are comfortable with things like this, you can sit and like meditate on it, you can pray about it, you can write about it, and just really dive into like, okay, if this is something I'm going to give effort and time and discipline to, what is it going to bring my life? How is it going to serve me and others? And I think that's a huge first step.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the why before, because I definitely feel like a lot of things that, especially when I was in high school or maybe even early college, that I would have been like, oh, this is a goal for me. The whys would have been not things that I'd be proud of now. The whys would be like, I want to look more like this person. I want him to like me, sort of things. And I definitely think that it's a growth, and not just being like, not that there's anything wrong with those things when you are a teenager, when you're going through those things, that you want other people to like you and you want to feel accepted, but it definitely feels like growth for me to be like, oh, I want to make sure that my goals are of value to me beyond just this one hurt feeling, really. Totally. That I have in that moment. And I think a lot of our goals, like at the beginning of the year, people are like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Well, why? And why is it 10 pounds? And why is it weight? Why isn't it? Not that it can't be weight, but why really are you going for that? I think is definitely going to bring a lot of enlightenment to everyone, as well as just kind of maybe help you see if that's actually not your goal. Maybe your goal is something else, and your why will help you kind of get there.
Exactly. Because I feel like, some people who hear the term goal, some of which are like my deepest friends, or my dearest friends, I should say, excuse me, like they hear the word goal and they're like, ugh, it seems taxing. It seems heavy. It's like this thing I have to do. And I think that is a lot of times
referencing me at the beginning.
Yeah. you were one of them, though we did work that out, and we actually should tell that story because I think it was really funny. So actually, okay, I'm gonna tangent. So we were on a trip together, and it was around the beginning of the year, which I don't know about you. I personally like to set my goals on my birthday. Like,
oh, like your year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, my year. Like the calendar year of the world spinning means nothing to me because clearly I am the axis of the world. I'm joking. I hope you all know. But yeah, I'm like, my 25th year
Mhm.
is going to look like this. But the goal planner that I like to use comes out, the new one always comes out in like November. So I do,
Disrespectful.
yeah, right? I have given them so much feedback, and I was like, don't you know that this actually needs to start on the most important day of the year, my birthday? But I haven't gotten any feedback, so I'll let you know when
We'll keep pushing.
that's a goal to change the world. But yeah, so like we were somewhere in January together. I was diving into the really like deep why pages of my goal planner, which I'm excited to talk about a little later. And I was just, when I'm in that zone, I love to talk about it, right? So I'm like talking about it with Erica and some of my other friends, and I'll never forget, like you, Erica, you were like, my goal this year is to not have any goals.
Yes.
And for the first time in my life, you guys, I was like, why am I friends with this person? Like, and not as in like I judged you, but I was like, what? Like, my mind exploded for a second. Like, I froze because I was like, no, 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 you know, we're so similar on things, and you're just like, you're such a badass. And I was like, she's not into goals. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean to not have goals? And like, and yeah, it sat with me weird. I'm not gonna lie, you really made me think about my own mindset. And I actually brought it up, I think, at one point, and I was like, Erica, we need to talk about this.
There's a really big difference.
Yeah. So then, but then we explained things, and even if that was your stance, like, obviously we can still be friends and we're all, but I was just like, I was so intrigued. I was like, what do you mean? Like, aren't you fueled by this? And then, so like, I guess this is a good opportunity for you to talk about like your approach to goals. You know, like, what did you mean by that? Like, my goal this year is to not have goals.
There's reason to why I feel that way or felt that way, because after we had a like conversation later, like I guess what we got stuck on is like language, and I feel like that's where a lot of people actually have like their misunderstandings and things like that, is that the word goal meant something very different to Brooke and meant something very different to me. And like while they both were like, oh, you work towards this, it was more than that. So like for me, historically, I've always had this like next thing is my goal, and it actually became really unhealthy. So my entire purpose and my entire like self-worth was especially entrenched in academic goals. So it was like, I'm going to graduate from here, I'm going to get into this college, I'm going to get this GPA, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this job. And that started to be everything I thought about when it came to my self-worth. And so then when I had the job, I was like, I have nothing else in the world. Like, there's nowhere for me to go. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to have a new goal. And it was to go back to school for another degree, which is something I would still like to do. But as time went on from planning that new goal of going to school again, the real world was like, actually, there are some other opportunities, things you should explore, things that would improve my life. And I do have to take, you know, my husband into consideration. I have to take our finances into consideration. Like, he would never stop me, but I do have to think about those things when making choices, because they don't just affect me. And so then I chose not to go back to school. So I had gone through all the things, like I took the tests, I did the things, I applied to school, and I got waitlisted, which was also devastating, but it shouldn't be. Just so you all know, you can get waitlisted and it is okay. But I rescinded. So I was like, no thanks, I'm not going to go to school next year. And that was like the biggest failure ever. I was like, I'm accomplishing nothing. I didn't meet this goal. Like, what is the point of any of that? So I came back from that like really low moment of feeling like I let myself down and like I wasn't living up to who I could be, and was like, I need to be happy with what I'm currently living in and what I'm currently doing, and experience that and just kind of live more in the moment. And really what that ended up being is kind of in itself a goal. But because I had associated the word goal with like going back to law school, it had to be, there are no goals, and it's okay to have goals. And that's kind of what led to that conversation, because right when that happened would have been when I was doing well with that knowledge. Like, I was like, I'm not working towards this next thing, I'm just kind of like working on being happy, which in itself, yeah, really was a goal. But that language stuff, semantics are so important to people. And I think, if you guys get anything from like this random story that I'm kind of delving into, is really define what words mean to you, whether you're talking to your friend or just thinking about yourself. Figure out what it means to you, and it's fine if it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone else, as long as you have a general understanding, because that might help you kind of see why you're feeling a certain way. Why I was so averse to goals is because I had failed a goal, which I guess is also something that, we kind of need to get into, is that people are going to make goals and they're either going to change because opportunities, come up, or maybe it just doesn't work out. And what do you do when you fail? Or what do you do when it changes?
Absolutely. Yeah, like that's a huge part of just going through life, right? And I think everyone tries to avoid that. Look, you're not failing. It's not a failure. Guess what? Failure is
Right.
real. Label it, feel it, cry about it, pivot, and move on. And like just another thing too that like I have to remind myself is that like maybe failing at a goal or failing to meet a goal by this set time does not mean you are a failure.
Yeah.
And so people might even hear this too, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that word." If you do change and you pivot, you're not actually failing. Sure, see it how you want. Label it a failure if it helps you. Also, like, yeah, if that's really a harmful thing, that really kind of throws you into these depths, then don't call it a failure, because really, life is all about just like trying new things, and like they don't work out, or they do, and then you move on to the next thing. It's like we're all just following breadcrumbs, right? So, but yeah, like that's a huge part, because we spend so much time setting goals and setting accountability and stuff that I'm happy to talk about and I'm passionate about too, but like, yeah, also then getting further into it and realizing that it doesn't reflect who you are in that season of your life anymore, or you dive into being like, I thought this was for me, but the more I learn about it, this isn't for me. Or maybe it is for you and you try really, 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 really hard and it still doesn't
Right.
work out. How do we get past that? Like, it's hard. I mean, you lean on others. I think a big part of it is
Mm-hmm.
identifying it, being vulnerable, and again, separating it, that it is not a reflection on you or your worth, what you bring to this world, anything. And maybe it is. Maybe it's the result of something that you straight up didn't do, did wrong. That's okay. I say that now.
Well, we're both
But
feeling good. But I mean, it is true. Part of life is
right.
those moments where you do fail or where things go wrong and you don't meet those goals or those expectations that either were set for you or set by yourself. But that kind of leads into why I really wanted to do this episode, because, guys, I'm the one who suggested it, even though I'm the one who started 2022 with I have no goals. Um, because I think the way that Brooke approaches these goals is so much healthier than what I have always done in the past. Because a lot of the ways that I set goals is a self worth thing, and it wasn't like I'm gonna feel better and I'll feel more whatever because I'll have bettered myself. No, it was strictly like I'm gonna accomplish this thing, and then because I have accomplished it, I am good. As opposed to it will make me feel better. I'm learning. I'm improving. I'm finding myself. And through talking to you about those things, I now can see how that helps people, and I can incorporate that into my own life. And I think it's just really good for people who maybe have the same outlook as I do or did, with some of those words feeling too heavy, could take this and be like, oh, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it entirely intrinsically right now. And then I can feel good about it later.
Totally. And one thing too, I will say, like, this is an area I'm always trying to learn about and grow in. But I have a lot of those like worth-based goals that I set for myself, and they can be hard to admit, and they can be hard to always identify in the moment. Um and so that is something that I still struggle with too. Like checking boxes and feeling like I'm succeeding is a huge part of what brings me just deep seated joy. So it is hard to walk that line. And that's where I think, again, just doing those practices of really intentional goal setting and going back to your why will help you navigate that and set those goals that are those healthy kind of just like almost you can even look at them as boundaries you put in your life, right? Or milestones or dreams, whatever sort of word serves you. Um, so it doesn't become this thing that it's like, well, if I don't achieve it, then I'm flawed.
I think that brings up a good point is that we're talking about topics that we are not masters of. Like, I don't think Brooke and I are sitting here trying to be like, oh, well,
Yes.
we're totally self actualized and now you can benefit from the fruits of our labor. No, we're just trying to talk through these concepts that we have made some headway in or had these deep conversations where we both came out of them feeling like we had more clarity and giving you guys the opportunity to have that conversation with us as well. And then hopefully everyone kind of finds their piece with it. In no way, do we think everyone's going to do exactly what we do or what we've found to be helpful. We just want you guys to be part of a conversation where you can reach what you need to reach from things like goals or relationships or all of those different topics that we hope to kind of delve into. So I know that you use a specific planner. You mentioned it earlier. You pay not an insignificant amount of money to get this planner. So can you tell us what value it brings you?
Yes. So first of all, I have to give a shout out to one of my good friends, Jansen Miller. She is she's a friend, but she's also like a mentor. She is like an awesome goal setter, goal planner. Like I look up to her so much, and she used this, and she's like, "You need to get it." Like, and yeah, every year since it is about $70, and I'm like, I don't need it. Like I'll just use the pages from last year, right? And I can't because it's so good. So I use the Cultivate What Matters goal planner. This baby's thick. Like if you're watching this video, like she thick, and I truly do, you guys. Um, I'm not gonna lie. Like there there's like 30 pages that you fill out and you write about and you reflect on before you even set your goals. And it's that diving into the why, it's your big picture, and I'll talk about those things. And then a lot of it is it's like breaking down. You have the full month calendar view, you have weekly, and then there's all of these built-in pages where you write down like your action notes and you record how you're doing on your goals. A lot of months, as you can see, like I don't even always utilize this. I want to more. It's actually a goal in my goal planner to use lots more because I'm the worst.
Is that like Inception? Your goal is to use your
Yeah.
goal planner more. I love that. I'm sorry.
No, that is the greatest reference ever.
And for those of you who are listening, we're going to post a couple of pictures of Brooke's planner on Instagram so that you can kind of see what she's referencing if you're more of like a visual person.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is like, first of all, this is like a female-owned company, so of course this thing is very visually pleasing, right? Like it comes with stickers, and they encourage you to use like colorful markers, and so it's like and they have like inspirational quotes everywhere. It's a basic girl's dream. So, long story short, though, like I again pretty much mainly buy this planner for how it helps me break down my goals, and just like reflect on who I am in the season that I'm setting goals for. So this many pages, again, 50 this year, it was like 50 is that. So some people are like, oh, that's overwhelming. But again, you can draw pictures, you can do as much or as little as you want. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So some high level points in this planner that are also like out in the world of goal planning that I find really helpful to help you identify the why is sometimes like breaking down your goals into these categories, right? So you can pretty much do whatever categories fit you, but like for example in this planner they have health and wellness, friendships, finances, personal and spiritual growth, work, job, family, recreational, fun. I think sometimes breaking down your life into these categories can just really help make things granular, right? Because you can look at your life and...
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, what do you mean by granular?
Yeah, a great question. Because, a lot of times when you do, like, think about your why, or like, okay, I'm setting these goals because I envision my future self being this way, it can just be like, oh my gosh, it's just so heavy, it's so big, like, where do I even start? And so making it granular it's like, okay, well, in the future, I want to have just this big, beautiful family. What does that look like for me? Well, that might mean that like I cultivate my family friendships more, and I really dive into intentionally seeking out a partner and things like that. So really kind of breaking down into these categories of your life. Again, when you sit down and like reflect on how these goals will serve you, you categorizing them, at least for me, really helps me.
Breaking it into the components almost.
Yeah. And some of them do overlap, and and they have like 8 main um categories here, but they even say like you don't need 8 goals for you. You could have 2. You can pick like, okay, this year, let's say you're going back to law school next year, Erica, if you decide that's right for you. Finances might be something that you need to really hone in on and get granular on, like identify, what am I going to do now? What does this want to look like in the future? One other thing I really like too, and this is something that I have started doing every year, is choosing a word for the year.
I remember saying that, but I cannot remember what your word is. Would you share it with us?
Yes. My word is bold.
Oh, yes, I love that.
Deciding to be bold this 2022, hence why we are starting this podcast and being vulnerable in front of all of our family, friends, and strangers. Seeking out some bigger personal goals that I've been dreaming about for a while and having those come in like to my reality. So yeah, like, and again too, it's like this planner specifically, but you can do this yourself, is just like take time alone for you, and or even take like a couple days or weeks and just listen for words, and like when a word strikes you, like, oh, I would like that to be me this year, or like, oh, I think that word would help me with this thing. Focus on what is an area that you want to get a little stronger in, or a part of you that you really want to let out. And for me, one thing that I was working on is just leaning into my authenticity and not being afraid to take up space, whether that be in a conversation, talking a lot, or like sharing vulnerable parts of myself. Being bold and showing up really drove my goals for this year.
Yeah.
So I really think those are just some things that you guys can start with too, is again sitting down and thinking, okay, a really helpful practice is even imagining your life in a certain timeline, 5, 10, 15 years, and you write it down as like it's a day in the life, like it's almost a journal. Like, I woke up in my home in this place with my significant other and my 4 kids. Or, get really specific and dream really big, and then look at that picture and be like, all right, to get there, to these things that feel like they would bring me a lot of joy, that they're on my heart, who do I have to become? And then from there, put a word on your year if that helps drive you. And then from there, look in your categories, like, okay, well, that person has their finances together. They're not in major debt, or they really have a close circle of friends and they know how to be a great friend. Well, then maybe you put some goals out there to like cultivate your friendships a little more intentionally this year. Just identifying what's going to get you to that point, of your dreams, to sound big and fancy.
But I mean, that's the bougie part of this. We're going for those big goals, right? But no, I like that. I like giving it a word that kind of gives you somewhere to go and a bit of purpose, added into, this whole process of planning goals when you're going to sit down and actually plan, with intention, as opposed to just being like, I want to do this thing, which is kind of how I do it right now, but I like how you're doing it. So one thing, I'm a special education teacher. I write a lot of goals all the time. And one thing that we have to do is have a timeline. So do you have timelines for your goals, or are they flexible? Like, what does that look like? And is it goal dependent?
That's a really good question. I definitely have timelines for my goals. And some of them are softer timelines than others. For example, some of my health and wellness goals are a level of energy and overall vitality and good feeling. So it's not like a time cycle, but I'm like, okay, well, within a year, I think by doing all of these things, this is going to help, my energy feel better, and I'll feel clearer, and I'll feel lighter on my feet. And so then I'm setting some benchmarks. So a lot of times I think it's helpful to start on my birthday and then reflect 3 times throughout the year, even quarterly, if that, seems best for you, to see how we're getting there, make adjustments as needed. So a lot of my goals are year goals, but I think
Yeah.
it really is dependent on whatever works best for you. Because maybe you do have a time crunch. Like, again, nothing wrong if you're like, hey, I want to get some of my strength back and my muscle back, or I have like a wedding coming up and, I want to feel my best, like, eat healthier, get my skin in check, whatever it might be. Hard and fast timelines are perfectly acceptable, but then also too, like, if you're like, well, it's hard to put a timeline on what this might be like,
Mhm.
still, I think set yourself something tentative, so it just gives you a good check-in point to work backwards from. Like, what do you think too? Like, how do you set yours?
Definitely something that I'm still like playing with,
Mm.
especially like we've mentioned with going back to school. I really teeter between being like, okay, that's going to be something I'm going to do in the next 2 years. But I've also debated being like the next 5 or 6. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I want to do it sooner because I want to be younger when it happens, which is not a fantastic motivator. Like, I mean, maybe that's fine. Maybe it's a good enough reason, but like, when I think about it, that is a very like, I want other people to see me have accomplished this thing, and that's not why
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something. When I sit down and think about it, so my current thing is like I'm enjoying my current job a lot, like more than I ever thought I'd enjoy a job, and I don't want to leave right now. So I'm flexing this goal where I initially was like, I'm going to wait 2 more years. That was my original plan. So I was going to put off school for 2 years, and then was that 2023? I was going to restart the process of going back to school. I was going to do my applications again and freshen everything up and improve my test scores and things like that. But, you know, I don't want to do that just to do that if I'm happy with what I'm working on right now. And I really do feel like what I'm doing is not like a waste of time. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like the longer I stay in my position, the longer it takes me to get where I want to go. I think that the longer I stay in this position, the more insight I'll have for future jobs, the better I will feel about the difference I've made in this world. So I'm leaving that to be really flexible, but it is also the hard deadline would be by the time I'm 30, I will have started the process again. So not that 30 matters, but it's just like one of those. It's just that like that decade number that does feel a little bit set. Where I'm like,
Totally.
that's five, little less than 5 years out. By then I need to have it figured out what I'm going to do. And if for some reason within those, next few years, and that's this thing that I think I've been talking, to Brooke in my personal life a lot about, is being flexible with if this goal doesn't end up being for me. Like if I end up being like, I'm really happy with what I'm doing, or I want to stay in education in a different way, which is a crazy thought with the current climate of the world, but that's okay. And I can do other things, and I don't have to feel bad about that. So my goal is there. There is a timeline, but it is also really, really open to just whatever I want. Does
I
that?
think it's huge, right? Yeah, because that helps you walk that line of like not getting so obsessed and letting it define you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's one thing too that, you know, I know growing up, I was like, well, I'm going to graduate college. And then by the time I'm 25, I'm going to be engaged and I'm going to have kids by 27 and I'm going to la 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 la. And I'm 25 years old now. And I'm like, oh, first of all, kids in 2 years? Absolutely not. I am single as a Pringle, and I don't even think I'm ready for that sort of like marriage commitment right now. Absolutely not. Pump the brakes. Like, I still have me to figure out, right? So there is something where, like, but there were years of my life that I was like, if I don't hit this milestone, again, I'm failing me, I'm failing the world. Like,
Right.
so flexing those goals, I liked how you said that. Like, I'm flexing the goal. That is huge, is like, yeah, it's all about like, I think some of this too is just tuning in
Mm-hmm.
to your feelings in the like where you are in life. Like if you are feeling a little uncomfortable, a little stir crazy, maybe it is a good time to set some goals, put some end dates on that. But if you're like, yeah, I have these things down the road, I want to keep them in the forefront of my mind, keep being intentional and working towards them slowly, but I'm also really feeling peaceful here
Yeah.
then live in that beauty, you know? And yeah, don't let the goals become a thing that pull you out of your now.
Exactly, which is, where this conversation was originally started at the beginning of the year. I've really reached this point of being like, I'm not looking to the next thing in my life anymore. They always say, like, you never know it's the golden years while you're in them. I feel like I know. Like, I know that I'm really happy. I have a lot of really good friends. I am in a really happy, positive marriage where I feel very supportive. My relationships with my family, I feel, are better than they've been. Like, I'm when you're a teenager and they're a bit more rough. Like, I feel like we're really, like, I just feel really solid with everything in my life right now. And I'm very happy. And that's something that I don't know that I ever really would have achieved if I hadn't slowed down.
Totally. That's such a good reminder too, in this mindset of setting goals and, achieving and looking towards the future and bettering yourself. Like, yeah, it's all about balance, right? That's why we wanted to put it in the title of this podcast. It's things to think about and things to consider, because it's true. You have one life to live, so use it intentionally, but some of that intentionality is also being right here, right now.
Right.
So I think that's a really beautiful thing that you are identifying this time and you're cherishing it for what it's bringing you in this season. And then I think your internal guide, whatever you want to call that part of yourself, will start to let you know when you're ready for some change.
Right. Yeah. And I do feel that, like, I was at a time, previously, like, a couple of years ago, and I know, like, in our friendship, I told you, I was like, it has to change. Something has to change. And then, I was able to take those steps, and they were goals without labeled goals. Well, they were. I was like, I'm going to apply to do this job, or I'm going to apply to go to school. I'm going to do these things, and one of them is going to work. I mean, I threw everything at the wall and hoped something stuck, and it did. But yeah. And I think that's just what's so important, and what I value about our relationship, like you and I, Brooke, so much, is that I have been able to kind of see those things about myself, and that helps me to make choices that benefit me more, because I get why I'm doing it. And I don't know that I'd always get why I approach things the way I do if I didn't have somebody to help me, like, view, like, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I don't know. I think that's just what it is, so positive to have these conversations. I'm just going to keep saying that, guys. You have to keep listening to me compliment ourselves on talking through something.
It's so true, though, because I mean, that's something, I know we've talked about this before too, but just the fact that, this is a very, really trusting friendship that we can bring our authentic selves to the table and bounce ideas off of each other. And another thing that I think is so beautiful too is that we are in many ways, very different seasons of our life.
Yeah.
You are married, you have a home, you have gone through so many, like, the adulting things, and I'm out here about to fly to a different country, just like, YOLOing, going back to school, and like, but we find this common ground, and like, I bring these things forth and you can give me this wisdom and this insight, or even just this ear to talk things through. Right. And that's another big part of this too, is just, and we could talk about this for a long time, and like, there's a lot of steps, I think, to like finding the right people. Some of it also just being the universe, I think, putting those people in your path when you're ready to appreciate them and utilize the gifts they bring. But having friends, because another thing too is like, okay, I've been in spaces where when I do feel internally like I need to make a change, like you were a few years ago, and I'm like, I'm ready to roll, this, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you talk to parents or adults, and they are a fabulous resource, and I don't want to minimize that at all. But there's also people who are like, well, just, you make good money, stay with what you're doing, or just let it go, like, just live your life. And you're like, what does that mean? Like, having people your age, even if they're in different seasons, they can offer you different insights. But another thing too is just like, again, me just being a goal-driven person, like, start small and don't be afraid to start small. Like, okay, maybe you're not going to make a huge career move now or physical move, but what are things in your day-to-day life that might bring you a little more peace or a little more joy? Like, there's someone out there that talks about like doing things that spark joy. I can't remember her name.
Kondo. Is it Marie Kondo? Or
I think so.
And I feel really, I'm sorry to those who know how to say her name or actually know her name, but she's fabulous. She wrote a book, like The Power of Tidying Up, I think.
Yes, because she's like the Netflix show, right?
Yeah, she did. She did
Okay.
after she wrote her book.
Yeah, like, identifying those things for you that spark joy, and like setting little like minute goals like in your day to day, like starting just walking. And again, think about like what's just going to make you feel good, what's going to benefit your friendships. Okay, well, I really wish I had friends that I could do physical activities with. Well, then maybe like go to your gym, or go wherever you work on. Make a goal to say hi to two people and like put yourself out there and be uncomfortable, and then you know, you will find these great people in your life. They really will. Like when you show up as the type of person you are looking for, like it sounds so cliche, but it is true. Like that like
Mm-hmm.
energy attracts like energy. So just know that you're worth it to start at any point where you are right now and do any little goal, or you can set a really big goal that feels ridiculous and you tell people and they look at you funny. That's okay too. Like own it. And yeah, just know that it's not set in stone. You can change it. And there are people out there who care, and that's where I think I'm kind of going in a circle with coming back to what you're saying, Erica. But like, I feel so fortunate that like you are a friend who listens to me talk about my big goals and my dreams. And, you know, for a while, again, something that really reflects in the word bold for me was I'm like, well, people don't care about my life. They have their own lives and stuff. And it took being vulnerable in conversations with friends like you to be like, no, I do care about you, Brooke. Like, you need to tell me what's important to you. I want to listen. I want to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, take up that space. Like, just your Ericas are out there, my friends. Your great friends are out there. Just
But
give it a
it's
try.
true. I mean, finding people who can support you as you approach these things, or find someone who can help you kind of, maybe I'm going to go back on my failure, right? Where I felt like I failed something, but to have someone like you and other people in my life who could help me be like, that was not, like, whether it was a failure based on a goal, like I failed because I didn't make it to law school by the time I was 25, or whether it was a change in choice of how I was going to lead my life because I only applied to one law school and then decided not to handle it. Um, like, helped me kind of figure out maybe the reason that it didn't work out all the way when it happened is because I was meant to do something different. And I would not find those things if I didn't have people supporting me through that. And it's so important that, you find those people who can support you. And that's so much easier said than done. Because I know, like, I've definitely been through times in my life where I'm so far away from the people that I feel like support me, or, like I'm isolated and I feel alone. But, that's again what I want to do with this thing. This Balanced and Bougie that we're doing is create a community and environment where you feel like you have people who are going to listen to your goals or the things you want to do, or the fact that you don't have goals this year, and still, listen to you and come and be there for you to support you along that path.
Absolutely. And seriously, on that note, when we talk about being a part of the conversation, please like involve us in. If you have
Yeah.
questions, if you have feedback on this, like something you're taking that resonated, or something that you feel like you can bring to the table that we didn't talk about, or maybe something you disagree with,
Right.
a way we can support you. We want to be your support system, and we want other people in this space to be a support system for other people. So reach out to us, put it out there, comment on, different posts and things, get conversations going. Like, we are hoping again that the energy we bring here will attract similar minds and hearts so we can all support each other. Because that's another thing that it's like, and this is a little tangent, but I just popped in my mind, I have to say it. Sometimes again, this is not my wisdom, but something that I learned and has stuck with me is that, jealousy of other people succeeding, or I want to do that, or why does she or he or they, get to do these things, that's a goal of mine. That is a scarcity mindset. And like, we are in, like, there is abundance to go around. Like, you focus on you, like, and just, when you feel that jealousy, acknowledge it. It's normal, but also let it be a reminder to you of like, okay, ooh, there's something I see this person doing that my heart really wants to explore, that I want to put myself out there to do. And then instead of being mad or feeling like it's not available to you, let it be a reminder that like, in the universe, these opportunities are available. Like, we can all do, like, there's just enough to go around for all of us,
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to say. And there are people out there who want to support
Mhm.
you, like us, and like people you will hopefully meet on our Balance and Bougie platforms. And let us know how we can cheer you on.
Yeah. I mean, and that's all we want from this. I mean, we want to
Yeah.
be we want to be this conversation that you feel like you're having with your friend, because that's, you know, we want to be supportive to somebody else who's having these thoughts and feelings that we have and that we struggle with or that we're growing in, and, you know, have a fun outlet for it where we can talk to each other. And then when we hear from you guys, we can literally talk to you about whatever it is that you're thinking. Because if you're like, that was insane, say more. I All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. It only took us like an hour. And we definitely had to hold back and cut like half of what we wrote down out. I am very proud of us. We hope you enjoyed today, and we really look forward to hearing from you guys in the future. So have a great week.